Trap squad, 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 trap squad. Hey, Clickbaity political. Yeah, ThirstTrap, trap squad, squirrel squad. Our mission is critical to speak the truth to the masses. Yeah. We here for the fight. We ain't started, but we here to finish it. Sick and tired of seeing the privilege. Take advantage of the weak and the innocent. So we let our voice be heard. Every single weeknight. Unapologetic. Yeah. Black people, despite this white supremacist system that we live through on a daily, we still throwing up those acorns cause we represent clickbaity. Trap squad, trap squad, trap squad, let me hear ya. Trap squad, trap squad, throw those squares up if you with it. Trap squad, trap squad, yeah I see you, yeah I see you. Trap squad, trap squad, trap squad, ThirstTrap, trap squad, trap squad, trap squad, let me hear ya. Trap squad, trap squad. Throw those squares up if you with it. Trap squad, trap squad. Yeah, I see you, yeah, I see you. Trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad, ThirstTrap.
This is America.
This is America.
Don't let me coughing on. Police be tripping on.
Are we dancing?
This is America.
Dancing. Hello, greetings everybody. Ladies, gentlemen, everybody in between. This is Dr. Jason Johnson here with
Mundell from Black Male Voters Project. What's good?
Apparently, we are off on our name order. I pointed this way. I was switching it up. I pointed to Marcus Farrell. Marcus Farrell from
Black Political Consultant and a current griot opinion writer.
Very good. And Mondale Robinson.
Black Male Voters Project and Black Male Voters Project.
And Dr. Jason Johnson. I have 12 job. That is an old Gen X reference to a television show that would never be allowed to come on today. And if you don't get the reference, that's okay. You will eventually pick it
up. 3 times 12 jobs, Rastafari.
Crazy boy, you only have 12 jobs. I make the car, I make the tires, and no one can be offended by that if you grew up watching this. And we're still not going to make the reference because you should figure it out. You should put it in the chat. You should put it in the chat if you recognize the show. Homie, don't play that too. All right, so today we have a very, very good show. We have a lot of different topics, but apparently, because we are all still in lockdown and all required to pay attention to the reason that we're actually in lockdown, clink. And trust me, I actually have started working on sound effects. I didn't tell Mondale and Marcus this, but I'm setting up sound effects on my laptop. So when I make a particular thing, I can like press a button and we're gonna start doing that, which is gonna be great. Very radio. But we're gonna start off with Corona, but unlike the usual sort of Corona discussions, right? Because Corona is all of our lives. Corona Extra, Corona Light, Corona Filtered. We're all dealing with it every single day. What I like to start with is, what is the Corona story today? Not a general one. What is the Corona story today that you think hasn't gotten enough attention? We'll start with Mondale. What's your Corona story for today, Thursday, April 30th, 2020?
I think the most impressing or depressing or both stories as it relates to Black people and Corona is a report that the CDC, which is based in Georgia, put out about what's going on in Georgia. CDC just released a report yesterday saying that more than 80% of the people that's been hospitalized by COVID-19 are Black people in their state in the month of March. I'm gonna say that again. For the month of March in Georgia, more than 80% of the people that were hospitalized were Black people. So it makes me frustrated, infuriated with Kemp, who is going ahead, plowing ahead with opening his state. And it also makes Reverend Jamal Bryant seem like a prophet, or at least like he's reading from the gospel when he said the governor is setting everybody out for slaughter. Because continuing to open when the CDC is saying you need to be extremely cautious, especially as it pertains to activities around communities that are deeply affected, meaning Black people, basically, because in the state, only 10% of white people were hospitalized from Corona, 4% of Latinos, and 3% of Asians. So you have to be talking about Black people in Georgia when you're talking about who's been hospitalized and affected by this. And to open this state right now is to basically say, die, Black people, die.
Marcus Farrell, what is your coronavirus story of today, Thursday, April 30th, 2020?
I mean, besides the fact that, so first I want to move back to Virginia. I want to repeat that 100% of the deaths in the state of Virginia and
In the city of Richmond.
In the city of Richmond, 100% of the deaths from the coronavirus are African American. That still stands today. That should be a running tally somewhere on this side of the screen about how many deaths have happened in Richmond. The next thing that concerns me is more so the amount of coverage that mainstream media is actually giving to our plight. It concerns me because we listen to talking points from presidential candidates, senatorial candidates. We have a whole plethora of things that we can touch on and touch back from when it comes down to what's happening. But what there is not a mainstream argument from yet is literally how this is destroying and hurting the Black community and minority communities and brown communities more so than anything else. We are elevating a lot of non-issues right now, and I will say that having a Black person.
Can you define that we?
Not we.
I was like, who's elevating what?
Not us, but there has been an elevation. There has been an elevation of issues that aren't important when my community is literally going through life and death. And I can look at every small town. I can look at every mid-sized town like Tallahassee. I can look at every major town like Atlanta, Georgia, and I can see that deaths are happening. Real, live people are dying from the coronavirus, and the mainstream media much rather focus on the horse race, and I fall into it too. So I apologize if I don't talk about the basics enough, but tonight we're gonna do that.
So here's my Corona story of the evening. My Corona story is a story about white America. The story of coronavirus is the story of white America. Many of you guys have seen this on Twitter. You've seen it on Facebook. You've seen it on the nightly news. A whole gaggle of Karens, I said it, or Karen's husbands have marched into the Capitol in Michigan. With guns. Threatening state officials to reopen the state. I want to make this abundantly clear to anyone watching who might be confused. A large group of white people carrying weapons walked into a government building where legislation is passed and created and are standing around with weapons to intimidate. This is an important distinction. All protests are a form of intimidation. That's why you do them. If I'm protesting outside of Burger King because they don't allow people to unionize, if I'm protesting outside of a Marriott hotel because they don't allow people to unionize, if I'm protesting outside of Jiffy Lube because they don't allow people to unionize, see where I'm going here? You protest because you're intimidating people. But there's a difference between intimidating people by a show of power, because look at all these people here who believe this particular way, and we will vote you out, or we will disrupt business if you don't listen to our concerns, and marching into government buildings with guns that have nothing to do with legislation being asked for, and hovering over elected officials with weapons casually pointed at them. That is my coronavirus story today. And I asked my compatriots on the show, what say you? Can you imagine this happening if a group of Black people walked in with guns in the state of Michigan?
We're gonna go in here and we're gonna shoot the virus. We're gonna shoot and kill the virus with our weapons.
Apparently that's possible. Apparently you can march in with a gun and make a virus end. And here's the other part of this that always sort of galls me. And you guys have probably been in a couple of protests in your lives. I've been in a number of protests, right? There's only one protest I've ever been in where I really, really was like, yo, I could die. And that was a protest against the government in Mexico. And I think it was either 2014 or 2016. Massive nationwide protests, right? You should look up, if you're ever curious, look up Yo Soy 132 hashtag. I was a part of those protests. I was down there covering. And I feared for my life, in large part because even though I'm pretty good at speaking Spanish, I had no idea like what was gonna happen, right? And they had guns and they had bats and they had, sticks and the whole right here. But that was a protest. As frightening as it seemed, about government corruption and encroachment that was affecting their elections. These protests are literally about people saying, I want to force you to open up this state so that I can practice commerce, even if it results in the death of others. Or am I missing something here, guys?
You're not missing anything. So let me say what I was gonna say. You asked your original question was, what do I think, or if this would ever happen, if it were black men? We know exactly what would happen. The Mumford Act in California happened. Ronald Reagan was governor. The Black Panthers marched into the state legislature with guns, which was legal. And then within a week or two, we had gun laws in California that restricted people, basically black people, from walking around with shotguns, right? So the Black Panthers, most people associate guns with Black Panthers throughout the legacy of the organization, but it was early in their formation that it became illegal for them to walk around with guns, even though they still did everything else they did, i.e. gave us free lunch in this country, even before the school system did, free breakfast program. We remember them for guns, but we don't remember Ronald Reagan for passing a gun law as a Republican.
Mondale, are you saying there's hypocrisy in America? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying every time I see America, it looks like hypocrisy. So yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm saying that I don't think I can imagine a group of black men and women, but mostly black men, marching into any government building with weapons and leaving alive. In fact,
they will not leave alive for sure.
I mean, well, we know we're not going to leave alive if we do something like that. But more importantly, we should probably talk about black men in masks, black people in masks, Mondale, where'd you go? Black folks in masks in general. Like
Mondale went to get a mask.
Yeah, he put up. Did you go and put on your mask, Mondale? The danger it is for me to go to my Kroger. This, you know what, Jason, this situation has actually made me think about like what it's like to be a black man. And because what I do, I go walking every day. I walk about 5 miles every day. Coronavirus got me going out and doing my thing on a daily basis, my brother. And what I realize is that when I see anybody, I literally give them a girth of 10 feet while I'm walking. Right? So I find it interesting, the kerfuffled response from some.
Are you saying falafel or kerfuffle or some variation of the two? I am lost. And all it makes me
one
think
of those words that
from Chick-fil-A.
Kerfuffle, the confused.
I mean, falafel is Middle Eastern, and waffle fries are.
The confused face that I get from some gentrifying white folks in my area that look at me like, why are you walking away from me when I'm supposed to walk away from you first? And it's the most interesting thing because for the first time in like American history, everybody's suspect.
Well, so the first time that white people are willing to accept that everybody's suspect, because we've known for a long time as black people existing in these bodies in this country, we've been known that they've been suspect. They're preachers, their interpretation of the gospel, everything about white America is suspect. And I'm not talking about white people, all of them. I'm talking about the ideal of whiteness. And this show is largely about the ideal of whiteness. So yeah, that part.
So here's the thing, and it's funny, you talk about whiteness and white gaze. Just want to toss this out there. I've watched the first two, seems like a non sequitur, but it's not. I've watched the first 2 episodes of Black AF. I have no idea why people like this show. Makes no sense to me. It's all focused on whiteness.
Because you're hyper-cynical.
The show was not for black people. It was for white people to like feel like, oh yeah, my wife.
I guess I gotta play the role of the guy who likes the show.
You don't have to play the role. Just don't like the show.
The show is not funny, Marcus. It's not funny. Like I've watched 2 episodes and it was a struggle. Okay, it was a struggle like your mayor's mac and cheese. It was that level of struggle. Okay, I couldn't.
Keisha, I did not say that.
I guess it gets better, but the first 2 were painful.
I'll be the guy that says it. Black man, Netflix show. I'm down. Thank you.
20 years ago, Chris Rock tried to start a comedy magazine at Howard University. He said that there were not enough Black people being trained to be comedy writers at an early age. And he mentioned the fact that you had Conan O'Brien and all these people on SNL who had gotten their start writing at the Harvard Lampoon, National Lampoon magazine. He's like, the reasons you have all these Harvard people who are writing all these shows and late night talk shows and sitcoms is because they have a place to train. And Chris Rock tried to start a black comedy magazine at Howard.
Get back in the boat. Guys, I'm driving tonight. Get back in the boat. Back in the boat. I'm going there. Let's get back in the boat, guys.
I'm just
Look at
saying.
this irresponsible over
Let's
here.
get back in the boat, guys.
I'm just saying.
We went hard left.
Here. Part of the issue here is he said we cannot be black people who just support whack black art because it's black. I'm just pointing that out.
Hey man, listen, you missed the whole Tyler Perry episode because Tyler, someone who I have publicly got on a whole bunch of times, literally explain, stop swerving left on me, Mondale.
I'm just trying to keep up with y'all. I'm just trying to keep up with y'all. What do we prepare for? Gentlemen, we are disciplined black men.
Clickbaity.
Let's go.
But there's a point to this. There's a point to this, Mondale. I have a transition. So here's the thing. And this is why this is actually substantive. So number one, I think it's always important for us to remember what the zeitgeist is while we're doing what we're doing, right? There's an organic zeitgeist to what the experiences are because we're in a space now where what usually takes up our time and energy is not there, right? This is a time where if we weren't in coronavirus, people wouldn't even be paying attention to a show like Black AF. They wouldn't. They'd be watching basketball. It would have premiered about 2 weeks ago. 5 people would have said it was trash and it would have disappeared. Same with Tiger King, right? There are things that have begun to take up space in our cultural discourse that would not have happened otherwise. And that's new and that's special. And maybe that ends up bringing other kinds of black art to the fore that we haven't seen before. But one thing that still continues to take up space in our political environment that has never changed is white men.
White man.
White people. White man.
See, y'all need to trust me. Y'all need to trust me.
Hey, I was literally trying to fix. I was like, where is he going with this? You got us there. It was a smooth.
I know where I'm driving. I'm driving.
Go ahead,
I drive backwards.
Hey,
but
by the
Jason,
way,
Jason, what say you?
Mondale put the old man like with the cigarette in his mouth. Uncle.
I'm 40.
Mondale had a cigarette in his ear and was asking Auntie, can she bring him a plate outside? Because he know he ain't allowed in the house.
I'm grown now. Okay, I'm grown now.
You're grown now. That's right. It's right. You're in the 40 club, so you're technically a grown up. Anyway, my point is we have things that are taking up cultural space in a new way, but white dudes stay undefeated, right? And I wrote about this last year when the Democratic field in 2020 started with a Latino and women and a biracial black woman and a black guy and all this different kinds of stuff. And then by the time we hit summer, it was a cavalcade of white dudes. It was a tsunami of cream cheese. It was, dudes in Crocs. Mayor Pete. It was Mayor Pete. It was Jay Inslee, who, by the way, quite frankly, I don't know if y'all feel this way. Jay Inslee looks like Clark Kent with gray hair. Like if that dude pulled open his shirt and like had a Superman thing under, I would believe it. Jay Inslee is like the most superhero-ish looking dude I've ever seen. Anyway, the point of all this is we are in a situation now where in the state of Georgia, where Marcus happens to be, that there is a particular candidate who seems to be sucking up oxygen again. And in a time where it's abundantly clear that the future of the Democratic Party, if not progressive politics, is in the hands of Black, brown, tan, AAPI community, why is it white dudes can continue to suck up the oxygen, and not just the oxygen, but the money? Marcus.
More importantly is the money, right?
Wait. We are political junkies. We are nerds. We are on the show. We're not TV. We're not cable news. We're not local news. We are political thirst trap. Say his name.
Say his name.
Don't say white dude. Say his name.
No, listen, I have no problem with saying that, John Ossoff.
Okay.
And guess what? I mean, he ain't hiring me for his campaign, and I'm a campaign operative. I could have told him and got paid to tell him what to do, what the right thing to do was, but it didn't happen. As far as
I'm doing is sit down.
Anyway. He would have lost in 2018 anyway.
Exactly. The right thing to do is sit down.
So first, let's talk about a little secret. Jason Johnson wrote an article a couple.
No. I was protecting you.
I don't care. I said it.
I was protecting you.
I said it. It was me, and I think they know I said it.
What'd you say?
I said them white
probably do
people
now.
ain't gonna win.
What'd you say?
I
The
said
article was entitled "That White Boy Ain't Gonna Win," and it was. That's actually a quote from Marcus.
That's
quoted
me.
it. Yes.
He protected me back then.
Yes.
But the problem is, since that moment, over $10 million got spent in communities that literally is not going to make him win.
Right.
John Ossoff is a very skilled orator. John Ossoff
Is he really?
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Huh,
But
okay, I didn't know that.
Pretty good. He's pretty good at being. He's very good at being a very good white orator. And
I don't know what that means. You're going to what does it mean to be a good white orator? And I'm not being disingenuous when I ask. What does that actually mean?
Leaning into what Georgia has set up for him, someone who's going to actually like sell a dream or maybe even sell himself. But here's the problem with the debate that we saw, because the reason why we're bringing this up is because there was an online debate a couple of nights ago, and I was looking at John Ossoff very closely, because here's the thing: you always watch the guy who got the most money. At least I do, right? I watch the guy who's spending the most money, or either has the most money, or who has raised the most money in the past. John, if you're watching this, and I know somebody's gonna share it with you, John, have a platform. You don't have a platform right now.
He does have a platform.
Maya Dilla-Smith, the sister that's probably not polling the highest, but Maya Dilla-Smith, every time she goes on one-on-one, the only time she's gone one-on-one, I believe, with and that's the black woman who's running for Senate, who no one really talks about. And there's a lot of other candidates, but I'm gonna talk about the black woman that's in the race, because that's my responsibility as a black man. She ate you alive the other night. You can't get on stage with her right now. So either A, adopt some of her policies, or B, like realize that you need to just do better in general and say something. And right now, just being a Democrat in this environment in Georgia is not going to work. Proof being, listen, Stacey Abrams wasn't just a Democrat. She dropped policies for black farmers. She dropped policies for black women. She dropped policies for black men. She dropped policies about criminal justice reform. She dropped policies, and she won this state, and she pushed her efforts, and she spent her money in black communities. And here's the thing: when you spend your money in black communities, I don't care what you say, you're going to actually put out a better message. So, John, hey, I love you, bro. I love the people on your campaign, but I'm gonna
love him.
That sounds deep and meaningful.
I don't love everybody.
That's some tough
I don't
love,
love
Marcus.
everybody. People show up two ways in this world, Jason, Marcus. You show up as a racist or anti-racist. John Ossoff has never showed me anti-racist. Those are the only, you can only be two things. You're either racist or anti-racist. There's no middle ground.
Look, first off,
hold on, let me finish my statement. Hold on, because this is big. This is big, Jason. Let me go there. Let me go there. John Ossoff and his whiteness, which is his platform, Marcus. He has a platform, is his whiteness. John Ossoff in a special election, raised $40 million.
This is true.
To lose to a Republican, Karen Handel, who only raised $8.4 million. Guess what happened in the real election? A black woman, Lucy McBath, came in 2018 and beat that white woman, who again raised $8 million.
But only about 2%.
Less than 2%, but she beat her.
Yeah.
She beat her. Listen to me. Lucy McBath used $2.4 million to beat Karen, who had $8 million, who beat Ossoff, who had $40 million. So don't tell me that he doesn't have a platform. Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And what I'm saying is this idea that white Democrats, the voters and the establishment, meaning the party, its auxiliaries and all of the organizations that are supposedly progressive, sitting out here continue to tell us what's electable, and it continues to fail. And it doesn't just fail, it fails up, because this Bama, he did not even win a special election in the 6th district with $40 million, which is more than any race for a congressional seat.
I got a question for you.
Let me hold on.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
Hold on,
I got a question for you.
Let me get through my rant. Hold your question. Let me get through my rant.
Let him finish his rant. Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is this brother had $40 million I'm on the same topic. I'm talking about white men taking up space. There's no way a black man or a black person or a woman could have lost the way he lost with that much money, and people would have came back and raised and gave to him.
There's no way a black man would have got that much money.
So the idea that you can give this white man $40 million to lose a special election for a congressional district and then bump him up to a Senate, to run for Senate is disgusting. It's disgusting because what happens is you're silencing the voice of black people that are better qualified, more apt at communicating to a larger swath of the Democratic base. And also, I'm about to say something that's going to tick a lot of people off. And also, when we complain and critique black people that are running for office, guess what we don't do? We don't call and cause people to lose their job. We don't cause and cause people to get threatened because they put a Facebook post about your candidate that you support. White women have been carrying, meaning carrying the name, I-N-G, carrying a sister that I love who is straight wonderful when it comes to Georgia politics all day because she posted something about Ossoff this morning, and now it's gonna cost her money.
No.
I want to clarify some things.
White people and a platform of whiteness is disgusting.
We have to contextualize this.
Go ahead.
We got people watching from all over the country, so we got to make sure we lay out some context here. I want everybody to understand before we get too granular. So John Ossoff ran in a special election in 2017 against Karen Handel, and I believe it's the 8th or the 7th.
No, it's the 6th district, a district he don't live in. He might live in the 8th.
Okay,
he might live in the 8th.
In 2017, and it's important for the audience to sort of understand this for context. John Ossoff did lose to Karen Handel. Karen Handel had run for multiple positions in the past. It was a marginal district. It was mostly a Republican district. It's also important to remember, and this is not in defense of John Ossoff, but this is the context that matters. Ossoff's race was the first resistance race, the first resistance election after Donald Trump got elected. The entire country was obsessed with getting back at Donald Trump. And this was the first time he got a lot of money and raised a lot of money because people all over the country.
Jason, that sounds real. That sounds real and wonderful, except for we saw it again. We saw it rear its head, whiteness I'm talking about, it being whiteness. We saw it rear its head in Texas with Beto. Beto was another conservative Democrat who raised a bunch of money, and it wasn't the first race. There was no resistance, and John Ossoff was a suit. In
the words of Sister Maya Dillard Smith, he was Georgia's Beto, right? Now, here's my question. Just like I question our revolution, one time we should go back to that. I question what a resistance is, because none of this stuff is black-led. None of this stuff is black-oriented.
It's not resistance-based.
Expectation of African Americans to jump on board white talking points. That means that they do not fundamentally agree with fighting for infant mortality in the black communities and black mamas being safe. That means that they automatically do not fight for criminal justice reforms. And to be honest with you, John Ossoff lost to a Karen.
Yeah, he did.
So let me ask you a question. To me, to be a Karen or to act in a way that you're acting like a Karen, then you are also being racist. Goes back to my point. You're either anti-racist or racist. John Ossoff's name in that race, when he didn't live in the district, when there was already qualified people running for the 6th district, was disgusting. It was whiteness at its best, and him running for Senate is the same damn thing.
Hey, Mondale, I got a question for you. Can John Ossoff run for anything in Georgia?
Yes, dog catcher as a Republican.
So here's my thing, and I think this is important for us to sort of also understand this in general. There is a difference. First and foremost, like I said, I would like to think that there's more categories available upon birth than racist or anti-racist.
Tell me how.
More so than that.
Tell me how.
What we see with John Ossoff,
confused.
It's the same thing that we've seen around the country. It's the same thing that we see with Beto O'Rourke. There was, I forget the guy's name.
Ed Lazier in DC.
There was a guy in Ohio. Do you guys remember the guy from Ohio?
Ed Lazier in DC.
I don't know
this election cycle. He's a white man running for at large, and instead of challenging the incumbent Democrat, which he was registered, he chose to challenge the independent black woman who's running. She's not an incumbent because guess what? He felt like she's an easier target. It happens all over this country.
The point being, the larger question at play is not that white guys are running. I think there's various reasons we can talk about structurally why that's the case. But I think something else that I think is worth understanding for people to recognize what they can actually do about this is, what is it about our electoral structure that allows these people to do what they're doing? And I think one of the reasons for that, the reason that you have your John Ossoffs, the reason that you have your Beddoes, and I would make a distinction between those two, because quite frankly, as much as I didn't think that Beto was particularly substantive, and I thought he was kind of just, a hipster Gen Xer who learned stuff, I think the post, was it oh gosh, where was the shooting? Where was the shooting? The mass shooting.
What shooting?
Where? Which state?
The one in his district. I forget the city. El Paso.
In El Paso at the Walmart?
I think that post the El Paso mass shooting, Beto O'Rourke, had he started as that guy, would have had a lot more substance. I think that he spent a lot of his 2020 campaign doing what, rich white kids do after high school, like a walkabout. Like, it was his chance to walk around the country and learn some things.
Jason, I love you to death, but I gotta stop you, man, because here's the thing. As much, and this is the veteran as me, as much as I disagree with mass murdering and guns in school, let me tell you something. These same folks that you're talking about, and Beto initially starting his campaign off of maybe a
Which campaign, Marcus?
It's very easy to start a mass to agree with kids getting killed. What's really hard to do is actually talking about fundamental poverty in your neighborhoods, fundamental classism in your neighborhoods, fundamental things that, it's easy to attack guns, but it's hard to attack Wall Street. It's easy and it's super hard to attack any issue that happens in the African-American community. El Paso has a Black population. Houston has a Black population. Did we hear anything from Beto during the primary besides surface level things to address the issues that are going on about power?
Marcus, you make a wonderful point, but beyond, you're talking about Beto's Senate campaign. So yeah, my problem, Jason, with your take on Beto is that he's just a hipster, Gen Xer. That's not the case, and here's the reason it's not the case: because he has a history as an elected official pre his Senate race, and if you look at that history, then you see all you see is a middle of the road centrist capitalist candidate. And there's nothing progressive about Beto. And if he was a Black guy, he would have never rose to national attention, which leads back to whiteness, which leads back to John Ossoff, which leads back to all of these men who are taking up space unnecessarily. And here's my problem with white men putting their name on the ballot in races that already have a diverse pool of candidates. One is arrogant, and I'll tell you why it's arrogant. If you are progressive, if you care about democracy, then you should be fighting for a reflective democracy.
Here's the catch,
democracy. Hold on a second.
Who says these people are progressive? You're
which people? Every candidate.
They may not.
Every race we name had a woman candidate or a progressive candidate in those races.
Bernie World doesn't think Beto is. Bernie World does not think Beto is a progressive.
I'm not talking about.
I'm not even worried about Bernie World. I'm just saying, the classical progressive world does not think that Beto is a progressive.
Let's not get caught up on Beto. I'm back in Georgia, guys. I'm talking about John Ossoff's name on the ballot, and the point that was made that there's nothing wrong with white men running. I'm telling you, it is. They're overrepresented in elected officials. We don't need any more white men right now. We need a reflective democracy. So if you are claiming to be a progressive or a Democrat and you're not supporting reflective democracy for the establishment to get behind you just because you're a white man and you look like what they think is electable, even though you lost a special election with $40 million, then shame on you. That's my take.
I hope their comments go to the donor class, because a big part of the problem is the donor class. The only thing that's acceptable to them is a white man who talks a certain way and actually has certain talking points. You know one thing about Ossoff? Ossoff has.
I don't know anything about Ossoff as it pertains as good.
Well, I'll tell you about Brother Ossoff. He's taken Obama gestures, Obama thoughts. Obama, he's Obama'd it because he's in Georgia and he knows that Obama has done well here. I'm not saying it's okay. What I'm saying is he does two things. He appeals to classical black voters who just want to see something.
He does not.
Well, maybe he doesn't. That's fine. But more importantly, the reason why he gets the $40 million to make mistakes and lose elections and run again is because the donor class looks at him and he's like,
let me ask you one question. So, but here's the problem though. That's the problem when the party leans into what the donor class is saying. If John Ossoff's name is not on the ballot, Democratic donors do not sit out this election cycle. I don't care what anybody says.
I didn't say you were wrong.
So what I'm saying is, it's the problem isn't the donor class, it's how we cater to the donor class. Here's another thing I would say also. Let me ask you a question, because one of our viewers asked this question. So I'm just gonna pose it to you guys. Tell me one thing Ossoff did in the past 3 years.
Lose the
I'll tell you, he disappeared.
Here's the thing, and this is, I think when I began this, when we sort of moved into this section, this is no different than, say, the conversation about Black Panther. I understand the critique of unqualified or less than qualified or mediocre white men stepping into positions because someone has an image as to what success is supposed to be, and they fit that demographically. I don't have a disagreement about that. We see it all the time. One can make that argument about Joe Biden, right? Woo! What I'm saying, I mean, come on, like, give me a break. Joe Biden hadn't won anything. He'd run for president for 30 years. He doesn't have a large history of substantive accomplishments. You know, he doesn't have a McCain-Feingold bill. There's no big.
Nah, I disagree with you completely. I disagree with you completely over that.
Okay, the crime bill.
Yes, yes. He has one major accomplishment that has literally hurt you, and you, all three black people. They're watching right now. The crime. He was very specific with that.
The point being that mediocrity with the majority population and stepping into any sort of job is not new or not shocking. What I think is also important to understand, and I think what Marcus sort of touched upon, is the issue is not just, the solution to me is not simply saying, oh, well, white people shouldn't run. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think they inherently take up space. I don't think that's the solution.
I said white men.
Well, we're white men or white people. I think the solution is to look at how party positions are chosen, how our primaries are run, and most of that has to do with money. If this was less about money, if the donor class, because the consultant class is paid by the donor class, right? If the donor class didn't get to dominate these elections and these primaries the way they would, then you would see a more diverse crop of people actually be able to compete. Regardless of what we may be thinking about her, Senator Harris, when she was running for president, what was one of the big things that she faced? Yes. Everybody has their issues with her, but also she had trouble raising money. Why? Because she was a black woman, and people could throw billions of dollars behind Mayor Pete, who accomplished nothing. Mayor Pete, whose entire constituency could fit inside the Ohio State College football stadium, right? And that wasn't even the number of people who voted for him. That's just the constituency that he served as mayor of South Bend. So I think the problem, the money problem, I know this makes me sound like a Bernie person, but I think the issue has to do with money.
I think you're wrong, and I'll tell you why I think you're wrong.
The primary process, we would have more diverse slates of candidates.
Here's the problem with that thinking. Hold on a second.
Hold on. Mondale first, then Marcus. Yes.
Here's the problem with that thinking. The pushback about Ossoff isn't just coming from big money. I'm talking about white activists, so-called activists that are screaming at black people right now because their point of view or their critique of him. So I'm not even talking about donor class. We have our problems with donor class, but donor class are followers. They'll do whatever is popular at the moment. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is white people screaming about not disrespecting or tackling or critiquing John Ossoff. That is a problem beyond the donor class. I'm talking about people that ain't even from Georgia speaking on Georgia's election to Georgia voters, criticizing Georgia voters for criticizing Ossoff's name for being on the Senate bill this cycle. That has nothing to do with the donor class. These are white people just acting white. And to go further and to go back to my point about the problem with white people name being on the ballot, I'm not saying white people shouldn't run in Iowa, in Montana. I'm saying if you
And white
care about
places.
reflective democracy, white men should not be the candidates for statewide elections in the South at all right now, period. And that's not a donor class problem. That's white people telling white people what is electable based on what their conservative cousins might do, and their conservative cousins and their conservative cousins. Let me finish my last point, and then I'll shut up. And what they keep, this is based on what they think their conservative cousins might do. The problem with that is their conservative cousins have yet to do it in the past 30 years. White Democrats are continually trying to target conservative white voters and what is electable to them, even though they've not won the white vote in 30 years plus.
Listen,
Go ahead, Marcus.
Listen, brother, you are absolutely right. I think you're forgetting one thing, and that is the amount of donations it takes to run a campaign. And as far as I'm concerned, like when you get into politics, any decent political consultant, whether you're from the hood or you're from the burbs, any decent political consultant is going to tell you one thing. No, you need money to run this race. So you immediately go from talking about your talking points as a candidate, as a former candidate, to how do I get my next dollar in? And guess what? Unfortunately, the way the game goes, and it should not be like that. Unfortunately, the way the game goes is people want to hear you talk about their crap when they want to donate to your campaign. So John Ossoff gets away with all kinds of murder because guess what? Even white Democrats in the South, matter of fact, white Democrats in the South might be the biggest problem. White Democrats in the South, I say at least 70% of them are not necessarily about racial equality.
90% of statistics are made up on the facts. I mean, on the spot. Go ahead.
Even if it's down to 30%, what I will say is this right here. Empowering Black candidates is something that our white rich folks who might be descendants of slave owners and feel bad about it, who are Democrats, feel bad about, right? They don't want to donate to the Black candidate. This is the thing, like, because they don't trust us. Are you going to put this money in a neighborhood that I actually am thinking about gentrifying? Ooh, I said it. Yeah, I'm thinking about gentrifying the neighborhood. I'm thinking about and the last thing I want to do is because I want to make a point from earlier. Shout out to Senator Kamala Harris because she's put out some of the blackest policies in the past 3 weeks that I've seen since Shirley Chisholm. So shout out. It may have took COVID for her to do it, but she's literally coming with that fire right now.
So here's I just want to offer this one thing before you respond, Jason. Let me give you something extra to think about.
Senator Harris would be a fantastic person to be VP.
Hold on, because I want to hear what you got to say, Jason. Hold on, Jason. I want to hear what you got to say, but I want to add something to that.
We want to set up the frame.
Hold on, I want you to respond, but I want to give you something to respond to as well.
Okay.
So before you respond to the Kamala Harris thing, because I know you are, also think about this. You and Marcus both made the argument about money and the importance of how money is to win an election. I would tell both of you that every presidential candidate for the past 4 or 5 cycles with the most money lost the election. And also, John Ossoff had the most money. Hold on, John Ossoff also had the most money and still lost. So the idea that you need to pay attention to what the money is telling you, or this candidate that's well moneyed or well sourced to win an election, you need a certain amount of money, but at some point it's too much. Go ahead, Jason.
I didn't say that. You just framed me. I did not say that. My main goal is, listen, organizing beats money every single time. I'll leave it at that.
So what I was going to say is this. I think that there is a mischaracterization here of what we were saying when it comes to money. All I was saying is that the influence of money and the primary process is fundamentally different than the influence of money in a general election. That's the issue. And as long as the donor class can influence the primaries the way they do, whether it's at the state or federal level, that is where we run into difficulties. That's where we run into how hard it is for African-American women, for African-American men to raise money, be successful, and get through primaries. The general election funder class is a totally different conversation. Not to say that it isn't sometimes the same people, but their motivations and how you have to approach them is very different. Because by the time you get to a general election, I'm deciding between A and B, and I was already team A, so there you go. It's a matter of, I'm going to give you $5,000 or $4,700, right? But the primary process is where I am making my choice about who I think is a winner. right? I've already committed to a party by the time we get to the general election. So the fact that donor money, look, I would be in favor, quite frankly, of like, you know, federal funding or taking the money out of the primary process more than I think for general elections.
But my only argument is Andrew Gillum. My only argument is Andrew Gillum raised damn near nothing in Florida during the primary season because the white donor class wouldn't give him money. But he came out of the primary successful. What I'm still going back to the idea that
away from Bernie's endorsement.
It takes more. Andrew Gillum was winning before Bernie endorsement.
I mean, I agree with you, but you can't take away the small margin, bro.
I can't take away
margin. Andrew ended up getting the progressive vote. Sorry about my life. Andrew ended up getting the progressive vote. What are we talking about?
Andrew got the progressive vote because he's the most progressive candidate on the ballot in 2018. Period.
White progressive.
Don't give that to.
But
wait, pause.
Come on,
bro. But I think
here, bro.
Hold 1 second. Hold 1 second. So here's the other thing that I think is critical here, and we got to make sure I want this set before we move to our next topic. Number one, I think one of the weaknesses here, and we'll have this discussion at a later show because I think it's worthwhile. I think the way in which terms like progressive and resistance and donor class are thrown around. I know what I mean by donor class, and I know what environment I'm talking about the donor class having an influence on, but my definition may not be Mondale's definition, may not be Marcus's definition. Further, I think when we talk about progressives, right, I don't think that Bernie world has a monopoly on what's progressive, no more so than conservative Republicans have a monopoly on what it is to be a good Christian. I think Reverend Barber has something to say about that. I think Reverend Jesse Jackson has something to say about that. I think a lot of people have something to say about that. And I think an important conversation to be had is what are we using to define these terms, right? What are we using to define resistance? How are we actually defining what's a progressive? Because until we know what that means, everybody can take those words, right? You can be Senator Harris who says, I'm a progressive prosecutor. I don't know what that means. Is that what she did?
No such thing as a progressive cop.
But my point is, it depends on.
You can't be a progressive cop.
It depends on how you define progressive. Now, that being said, I think it's interesting. We've been talking about white men in important places and stepping in and taking up space and what that means and what that looks like. And some of that, if you were to ask benevolent, liberal, and sometimes racially regressive white men, they might say something like it is the white man's burden to step in and lead the hoi polloi and lead the masses into much more responsible ways of going about politics. Now, I say that facetiously, obviously, but that is an undercurrent of some of the politics that we see, that you still have white liberals who think that they might be the only path forward. But part of that burden is also being in a position where you are someone who was born into privilege because of your skin color and your gender, and yet you're supposedly representing a party that is increasingly built and made up and comprised of people who've never experienced that privilege and never will, because they're the LGBT community, because they're Asian, because they're non-white Latinos, because they're African Americans. I say this because earlier in the week, we had a conversation on Tuesday night show where we talked about Joe Biden and the sexual assault allegations against him. And we had a very, very thick, frothy conversation about what that might mean on Tuesday. We wanted to return to that tonight because we have a sort of topic here about Joe Biden's burden. Tomorrow morning, Joe Biden will be going on Morning Joe on MSNBC and addressing the allegations against him from Tara Reade. We had a conversation about this in our production meeting earlier today as to how we would approach this. And I set this up because I think everybody here has a very strong, distinct way they want to look at it. And I want to sort of set the pathway for how we go forward with this. For me, professionally and politically, I really don't think it's something to be talked about right now. And the reason why, at a fundamental level, is because Tara Reade has accused Joe Biden of committing a crime. She's accused him of rape. None of us are officers of the law. We are not lawyers. We are not investigators. We are not cops. And if somebody accuses someone else of a crime, then the only people who should be involved in that discussion are people in law enforcement and investigation. And anything else, I think, to a certain extent, is not only journalistic malpractice, but also falls into the category of being weaponized against a candidate by bad faith actors who want to promote this story, not because they're interested in discovering the truth or justice, but because their goal is to damage the Democratic candidate. Now, that was my feelings from the beginning that I expressed to both my colleagues here. I didn't really think it was something to be discussed. I would just as soon wait for an investigation. But both Mondale and Marcus feel very passionately and very differently. So I'd like to ask you both, number one, how do you think, we talked before about what we think would be different if Joe Biden wasn't a white man. We know that. How do you think the press and people in public discourse should handle this conversation? And then two, what would your expectations be, or what would you like to hear Joe Biden say tomorrow morning when he goes on Morning Joe to discuss these allegations?
So to be clear, I'm not a journalist. I'm an opinionated Black man who sit back and who plays in politics for the past 20 plus years. So what I'm saying, I never speak from a journalistic point of view. I speak from a Black man who happens to have a platform that most Black men don't have. And because my work is designed and about Black men, I'm obligated to say something. I want Joe Biden to be subjected to the same scrutiny that every Black man has been subjected to, that has committed or has been accused of being committed of something related to this crime, period. Joe Biden needs to answer for this, and he can't send out surrogates to speak for him or on his behalf. Joe Biden needs to sit down and not in a safe space and have this conversation, period.
Why?
Everybody should have to speak or answer questions.
What kind of questions should everybody be obligated to answer?
When these are the accusations, these type of questions.
So
there's no way we can be considered credible as people if we can go all in on Kavanaugh and not go all in on somebody on our side. That is beyond hypocritical. We are obligated to not just listen to women when they're criticizing Republicans. And I don't play at that point, party goes out the window. If someone says that they've been wrong in this manner, then we should hear it out. Joe Biden should call for an investigation, just like Fairfax did.
Well, and therein is my pushback, right? The issue with Kavanaugh, first off, there were a lot of issues with Kavanaugh. Brett Kavanaugh had lied about a bunch of different things. He had debts that nobody could explain. He had hidden a lot of, there were, Christine Blasey Ford was the umpteenth thing that had been a problem about Brett Kavanaugh. But what was critical about that is when an actual investigation was called for, Republicans made sure that they limited that legal investigation to the narrowest of margins, so it was almost impossible to find out anything. There were tons of people they didn't talk to, tons of people they didn't investigate.
You're absolutely right.
I'm in agreement with you in this particular way. I say, leave it up to law enforcement, and trust me, I'm not the person who always trusts law enforcement, but leave it up to law enforcement. And until then, I don't think, again, to discuss it is to play into the hands of the bad faith people who want this. If you care about justice, for victims, then you should be an advocate of a third-party investigation into allegations, and nobody should be saying anything about it until those investigations are done, because who's supposed to be talking about an ongoing case? Marcus.
Why is that the case for a white man but not for Black men?
Hold on.
Everybody should be subjected to all of this.
Let me say one thing. Why is it important now to wait for investigations when throughout the history?
Speak up, Marcus.
Throughout the history of Me Too, throughout the history of, matter of fact, I'm not even gonna knock Me Too, because Me Too is right. I agree with Mondale, but here's the issue: we're not holding the same scrutiny to Joe Biden that we do to anybody else. And here's a more important point. The irony falls on me that the crime bill, a criminal justice initiative from the 1990s, has been passed by the same guy who is not getting affected by the same crime bill that he wrote. There's not an over-policing of Joe Biden right now. There's an under-policing of Joe Biden right now. And if
there is no policing of Joe Biden right now because there's no formal investigation.
Exactly. And the point is very simple. For the author of the crime bill to believe in crime and justice and criminal justice and never ever apologize and then have allegations against them, I do believe that we should have investigations. But guess what? I also believe that there should have been investigations over every single black man that got beat by a cop, every single cop that got let off, the criminal justice system that Joe Biden has been a part of is not actively being used. And also there's a bunch of hypocrisy. I'm gonna go back to what I said last weekend and I'll leave it alone. Only two things could be possible. Either somebody's trying to set up Joe Biden, right? And we know that there's less than a 5% like lying threshold when it comes down with accusations, or either we're being hypocrites. And guess what? Being a hypocrite, this is a very important point. Calling out hypocrisy doesn't make you anti-democratic. Calling out hypocrisy does not make you a bad Democrat. Calling out hypocrisy makes more people come to you. You wonder why men of color don't want to mess with the Democratic Party at the levels that they should, because they're watching all of this. And they say, wow, you Me Too when I'm up on stage, but you don't Me Too when your guy's on stage. And that's all I gotta say.
Here's the thing, similar to Mondale saying you're either born racist or anti-racist, the idea that either it's a setup or hypocrisy, I think there's more options than that. And quite frankly, it's perfectly, look, there are thousands of things that could have happened. It could be that Joe Biden did exactly what this woman has accused him of, and it's being weaponized by bad faith actors on the far right and the far left. It could be that Joe Biden didn't do what this woman accused him of, and it's being amplified by bad faith actors on the right and the left and uses Oppo research. It is possible that something occurred that may be inappropriate or may be unethical, but does not reach the threshold of a crime, which is what he is being accused of. And that is being conflated into a larger conversation.
Jason, I have a question for you.
My point of saying this is, since none of us know, this is not Trayvon, right? This is not Trayvon where we had audio of the cop saying, hey, George, stay in the damn car, and he got out anyway. This is not so many other situations where it was abundantly clear because there was actual evidence. And remember, I said this before, evidence is a legal term, right? We have no evidence in this situation. There's none. What you have is one person's word against another. And
Jason, I have to say one thing.
Responsible to speculate.
Brother Jason, I have to say one thing. So at the end of the day, right now, Marcus Sparrow plans on voting for Joe Biden and elevating his campaign so Donald Trump will lose. That's my plan. I don't know what anybody else is going to do. Or maybe I shouldn't do that, but I am right now. But guess what? I'm going to feel real horrible if some kind of evidence comes out that we don't know about right now at this very moment that dismisses Tara's claim. And guess what? We're all going to feel like crap at the end of the day because we went out of our way to hold the same scrutiny that we did for so many other people against Joe. Now, an investigation is warranted, and that's what needs to happen. And I'm going to hold my judgment. Notice one thing. I haven't said anything about whether I think he's guilty or not because I'm not a juror. I don't know. But what I will say is this is to not hold the same scrutiny that you hold for everyone else.
It's inauthentic at best.
It's problematic.
And I think, and it's not that I disagree with that assessment one way or another, but to me, and again, this is might also where I'm called the nihilist of the three of us. I'm like, I don't know why anyone is surprised. I mean, we live in a racist country and things aren't fair. I wouldn't expect under any circumstances for Joe Biden.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying, Jason.
I mean, it's good. That's just what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, the idea that it just is what it is a hindrance on so many people's lives. It's also like it is what it is that Black people are killed more by cops. It is what it is that Black women have to work an extra shift. It is what it is. So many is what it is is an extra burden on people, and it's not right, and we're obligated to speak up about
But to
it.
quote The Wire, you wanted to be one way, but it's the other way. See, here's the thing.
Which way do I want it to be?
What we're talking about here is there's a difference between having a discussion about the larger systematic problems that affect our people and the way in which people in unique positions of power are held to different scrutiny. To say this is how the press and national level campaigns operate is to not make a moral judgment as to whether that is right or wrong. It is
I'm not even
simply
talking about the press. I don't expect anything from the national press. I'm talking about we need more Sarah Silverman in white women. What she did to Gillibrand is what all white women should be doing right now. Period.
I can very seldom find myself on any side that is Sarah Silverman's under any circumstances.
That's fine. But however, she pointed out the hypocrisy in Gillibrand saying she trusted Joe Biden, but calling out for Al Franken to get fired.
No,
so
I have a question
that
for everybody on this panel. How come our system isn't set up as Democrats? And I'm a Democrat, and Jason, you're not one.
I am not
one. How come our system as Democrats isn't a system that, okay, let's affirm and readjust, right? Because I guarantee you this right here. I go back to last Tuesday. If Barack Obama had the same kind of allegations, there would have been a person in waiting to make sure that the campaign kept going. Here's the problematic part about all this right here. The Democratic Party decided to throw their bones behind somebody. And guess what? This is one of the biggest issues that we're going to see. And I know the Republican Party is chomping at the bits. I said on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, listen, y'all think that the Republican Party, the GOP, is not going to do opposition research? If you think the Republican Party is not going to do opposition research and blast this millions and put millions and millions of dollars behind it, that's a problem because you don't understand how politics works right now. So guess what? You want to suppress the vote? You want to suppress women votes? Let this go unchecked and unchallenged. So I'm very, 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 very interested in what Joe Biden's going to say tomorrow, because guess what? What he says is going to basically put women against everyone else if he messes it up, and that's a problem.
You know, we're gonna end this segment. I'm gonna do a Joe McLaughlin. You're wrong, and you're wrong. You're wrong, and you're wrong, and you're wrong. This is a McLaughlin group. This is a black McLaughlin group. And y'all is wrong. That's my answer. This is wrong. Eleanor Cliff, you're wrong. What's the other guy? I can't remember the other guy, the Prince of Darkness who passed away. Novak. Bob Novak, you're wrong. All right. So that being said, and again, we encourage everyone to go watch this tomorrow morning on Morning Joe. So as we always do, and you know, there are various discussions about how we maintain time, but we always like to make sure that we end, because Mondale has not only a special interview, but a special word that he wants to be able to share with everybody. We want to make sure that we have plenty of time to get to that. But we always make sure that we want to talk about something light, something frothy, something delicious that we can all end our days with and be happy about. And so today, and I think the response to this was pretty good. And I actually learned something. I learned something about these two guys who are my friends. I learned something about their backgrounds. I learned something about my background. I know the audience finds that interesting. So I like asking questions and light questions that bring out sort of a lighter tone. So today, you guys may not know this, but today is a very special day. Does anybody know what today is? Anybody know? Anybody got a guess?
Thursday.
Anybody know why today is special?
The last day of April.
So on this day, this last day of April, April 30th of 1991, Boyz II Men released their debut solo album, Coolie High Harmony.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm gonna play a little bit. I gotta play a little Coolie High Harmony just to start us off. And then I'm gonna hit you all with the question. So take your minds back to 1991. I'm gonna hit you with the question.
You ain't gonna age me. I don't even remember 1991. I was born.
Y'all hear this? Y'all hear this?
No, we don't.
You can't hear?
No.
Ah, that's right. Zoom
ain't God good? Ain't God good?
I'm mad because Zoom doesn't play sound. I was playing the video because the opening beat is great. So here's the thing. What I wanted to ask you guys is, what is, because that was a significant album for a lot of different reasons. I don't need to hear your whole New Jack Swing era adventures. But what is a great Boyz II Men, if specifically you can say Cooley High, that'll be great. But what is a great Boyz II Men memory that you have from this album? Because we're all old enough that we remember this album when it dropped 29 years ago. Name a great memory that you have from this Boyz II Men album, Cooley High Harmony.
So my memory, and she might watch this, it's a long time ago, but my memory is me waiting for End of the Road to come on, our little high school dance. And Tanae Tucker, I said, your name, sis, I love you to death still. And Tanae Tucker, like, looked at me like him downstairs and was like, you're in 6th grade, I'm in 7th grade, get out my face. So it is what it is, but that's my greatest memory to that right there. So Tanae, yeah, thanks.
Wow, that is good and specific. That is good and specific. 6th grade Marcus, Boyz II Men, specifically remember that song. Mondale, what is your Boyz II Men Cooley High Harmony memory?
Motown Philly, learning I can't dance.
Hey, Mondale, can you dance now?
No. I don't need to dance.
That does not surprise me.
Gangsters don't dance. All we do is this.
Oh,
All we do is this. What you talking about? I don't need to dance.
I figured as much. So I have a lot of memories. I have a lot of memories from this album. A lot. And this
we just need one so we can play Avery Tolson interview.
We're gonna get to it because like I said, we have time. There's time. So first and foremost, when this album came out, I was probably late junior high, early high school. And the thing about it is Boyz II Men was like, it was symbolically, it wasn't just it was great music, but it was symbolically the first foray into like suburban Negro Black hip hop, right? If you think about what the R&B and hip hop groups were at that point, right? Hip hop and R&B, it was all Jodeci. It was all New Edition. These were from rough backgrounds. They were from the hood, blah, blah, blah. Boyz II Men, if you notice that Motown Philly album, what did you see in the background? All these brothers were in khaki pants, blue jeans, and suits. That was your freaking uniform if you were an upper middle class Black kid in the suburbs at the time. They had the little high top fade. My brother used to say, when he described me to his friends, like, my brother looks like Wanye from Boyz II Men. Like, that is literally, like, I identify with these guys in a way. Boyz II Men were the I'm going to Morehouse suburban Black kids that white parents were comfortable with, right? When they sang and ah, it was like, I'm a
Jason, were you cross colors or duckhead?
What'd you say?
Were you cross colors or duckhead?
I was neither. I could first off, cross colors was too cool for anywhere that I lived. But I had purple overalls. And I had a matching tie like they had in the Boyz II Men videos. That was my uniform. And I learned how to dance. I learned how to dance from 2 videos. And I'll say this before we move to the interview. There were 2 videos that taught me how to dance when I was a kid. And I would go into my backyard. We had like these big wooden flats near our shed that we had in our backyard. And I would drag the big wooden flat into the basement, lay it down in front of the TV on the carpet. And it was Bobby Brown's Every Little Step I Take and Motown Philly that I would tape on my VHS and play over and over again on slow to learn how to dance. So that is very specific memories from the album. Can I dance? Not at all. Could I dance well enough to convince the white kids in Nebraska? Yes, I could. And that's what was important. So with that being said, we have a very special interview. As per the usual, as I tell you guys, sometimes I have to bounce, but we have a very, very special interview that has been done tonight by Mondale. Quite frankly, it's something that I think we're all going to end up listening to and all be fascinated by. Mondale, I want you to set up this interview and then kind of tell people how it's going to lead into your final thought. Take it away.
So basically, today I had the wonderful luxury of speaking with Avery Tolson. We're going to start this interview section where we ask one question of someone who is making ripples throughout the world. And this brother is definitely doing that. If you don't know who he is, you definitely should check him out. In the interview, at the end of the interview, he gives you his website, but a brief overview of who he is. He is an educator, a father. Actually, I'm not gonna steal his thunder. I'm just gonna play the interview and let you guys check it out and enjoy it yourselves. So I'm gonna play it right now.
All right, Mondale's taking us out. Peace, guys.
Peace, David. I can't hear it.
You can't hear it, Marcus?
Yeah, bring it to the forefront. Try it again. One more time.
1 second, y'all. Wait, are we having technical difficulties? Can you hear me, Marcus?
I can hear you. We're good. We're still live.
Can you hear the interview?
I can't hear the interview.
You
Maybe the
cannot hear
audience, can you hear the interview?
I can't see the audience. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stop that then, and I'm going to just say what the brother said, and then I'll just basically inform you guys on what he was talking about. So Albie was basically talking about the state of Black America and education as it pertains to it. And what we'll do is, Marcus, we'll actually put the link to the video in the comment section.
We can actually post the video to
and we can definitely post the video to the channel or the page. But he was basically explaining how he identifies as a Black man who grew up in an era where, you know, raised by two men, his father and his stepfather, who were Panthers or right, you know, next to Panthers. And even to the point where Tupac's stepfather, whom he got his last name from, was a part of his childhood and how that affected his life and how he sees education right now. He was also talking about, the brother made a great point about how we will not be the same. We being Black America cannot come out of COVID-19 the same as how we educate our kids, mainly because so many parents are seeing right now the absence of our history, our story, and what their kids' curriculums look like. And he was, and as an educator, I found that extremely amazing that he even found the lack of Black history as a damning factor or tale for Black America and also public administration, like the public education. So I don't want to misquote the brother. We're definitely gonna post that video as soon as we get off this chat. But it was powerful. It was moving just to him to give time to answer that one question and also make it plain on why Black people are suffering the way we're suffering and how teachers aren't prepared. And he was saying how education for Black people isn't just about what you learn in books, and it's not just about like the knowledge you receive. For some kids, for most kids, a lot of kids, it's also the only 2 meals they'll get a day. And now no one is checking up on them. He said it was also, you know, for so many kids, the only safe space they had, and that space has been, you know, eliminated because of this time where we're all stuck in home 24/7. So it was an extremely wonderful 6-minute and 33-second interview. I'm unfortunate we can't play it right now, but like I said, I'll definitely share that link.
We're gonna play it.
Definitely.
But before your because I want to go ahead and get into your last thoughts. But before you get into your last thoughts, I just want to make sure that everybody who's still watching us on Facebook, go ahead and like our page, subscribe to our page, share our good works and what we're trying to do here at Clickbaity Political.
Wait, what are we trying to do here?
And then I'm going to leave it up to the last thoughts to my brother, Mondale Robertson. Man, it's on you.
I don't know if everybody heard this or know about this, but Black Male Voters Project, my organization, started a petition. Please go to Black Male Voters Project, a Facebook page, click on the link to sign a petition. There was a brother who was killed on February 23rd in Georgia, Brunswick, Georgia, for running while Black. Literally all he was doing was running jogging in his neighborhood and got chased down by two white men. One of the white men, well, the white men were father and son. The father was a retired cop and also an investigator for the local DA's office. This brother got murdered February 23rd. No one has been arrested. We know who shot him. We know who murdered him because when the cops got there, they were still there. One of them were armed. And it was three people. They haven't said who the third person was. The reason we don't know if everybody was armed on the scene because the cops didn't bother to ask if people were armed, nor did they bother to tell people to put the guns down or to de-arm themselves or anything. But because these are white men chasing down a black man, shot him in his back, murdered him. At 1:23 in the afternoon, this brother was murdered. Not at night. He was jogging in the middle of the day and was murdered. We're obligated to do something. We need to sign this petition to make the Attorney General of Georgia take up this case. Already the first DA recused himself because of the cop working for that DA. The second DA recused himself, but he recused himself with a statement that said he believed the people were in their right to shoot this brother in his back for jogging. So we know that America is continuing, even in the midst of COVID, and brothers are getting out trying to exercise, still devaluing Black life. This man was 25 years old. He's been murdered. No one is talking about it. We need to make this a thing. Please sign that petition, share that petition. It's at Black Male Voters Project website and also Facebook page. Please go sign it and share.
And it also will be on Clickbaity. We'll make sure that link posts to that.
So again, if you're Black, be careful. Being Black is a felony in this country because white people said it is. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Look out for each other and know that we're never safe in a country that does not value our life. Peace, y'all. Have a good evening, but not before you think about it.
Trap squad, 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 trap squad. Hey, clickbaity political. Yeah, thirst trap, trap squad, squirrel squad. Our mission is critical to speak the truth to the masses. Yeah. We here for the fight. We ain't started, but we here to finish it. Sick and tired of seeing the privilege. Take advantage of the weak and the innocent. So we let our voice be heard. Every single weeknight. Unapologetic. Yeah. Black people, despite this white supremacist system that we live through on a daily, we still throwing up those acorns cause we represent clickbaity. Yeah. Trap squad, trap squad, trap squad. Let me hear ya. Trap squad, trap squad. Throw those squirrels up if you with it. Trap squad, trap squad. Yeah, I see you, yeah, I see you. Trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad, thirst trap. Trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad. Let me hear ya. Trap squad, trap squad. Throw those squirrels up if you with it. Trap squad, trap squad. Yeah, I see you, yeah, I see you. Trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad, thirst trap. Trap squad, trap squad, trap squad, trap squad.